Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought I'd pop by and create another little video, just something simple. I can't believe I'm actually sitting here in October and I'm absolutely boiling in my craft room. Here in Cheshire the sun is shining and it's like a summer's day. I'm boiling, can't believe it. So what we're going to do is just a simple little card. So what I've got is I've got a piece of white card, Pink Frog smooth card, 5 inches square. I've then got a black mat, 5 1/4 inches square, and I've got my card blank, which is 6 inches square. So that's what I'm going to be working with. But first of all, I'm going to be using 2 ATC size cards. So ATC Artist Trading Card is 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches. Now I'm not using them as an ATC card, I'm using them just as my focal piece because they work nicely on the card. Now I've already got some coloured. You don't need to see me colour both because I've got one already done. I'll show you how I've coloured the first one. And today it's all about simple. So that's all I want today, is something simple. Right, so I'm going to use my anti-static bag mainly because Tracy's handled this so much that I don't know, and I do want to add a little bit of embossing, so I don't know how much my paw prints are all over there. So I'm going to start with picked raspberry. I'm going to take my picked raspberry, and I've got cut and dry foam. It doesn't matter whether you've got an ink blending tool, a piece of sponge that you've taken from the kitchen, whether you've got brushes. Brushes obviously give you a lighter lay down of colour. The cut and dry foam, because it's dense, gives you a darker intensity layer of colour, and so do your blending tools. So I'm just going to apply the picked raspberry. And you can see I'm just smoothing that out. So I'm then going to go to the orange. So what I'll do with the other sort of ATC card is I'll mop up some of this ink. So I'm just going to move this, and then I'm going to use spiced marmalade. So again, I'm going to take a good layer of ink. Just make sure that whichever implement that you're using has got a good layer of ink. And then you can either turn it round and work from this way, or just continue just layering the colour like I'm doing. So there's my spiced marmalade, and you can see with the cut and dry foam or your sponges, the layer of colour that you layer down is deeper and richer. So when you use your brushes, it's a finer layer, because obviously using those brushes to apply the colour that are longer, they're not dense like this is. So I'm applying the picked raspberry again just to get rid of any of those lines. So let's just move those out of the way. I'm then going to use, there it is, I'm then going to use mustard seed. I like mustard seed because it gives a nice bright layer of colour. That's my mustard seed, and you can see absolutely nothing complicated about this at all. I'm then going to use my peacock feathers and just layer down that colour. Now when it touches that yellow, you're obviously going to get some green, but that's the whole point of layering down the colours. You can then go back with the same piece of cut and dry foam and just make sure you blend out those lines. I'm then going to take my wilted violet and add some wilted violet, and again I'm using a different tool here just because I'm using what I've got. I'll just turn this round and I'll move it away from the yellow. Just add the nice deep rich purple. Just add that. So I've got a nice layer of colour there. I'm just going to grab a little bit more. That's better. There we go. That's nicer and richer layer down of colour. Just going to go back to the peacock feathers and just layer that out. So this is what we've got at the moment. And what you're going to do is just spritz that with water. So I'm just going to add water to my hand. And the only reason I'm adding it to my hand is I'll get some sort of bigger splatters. So I'm just using my hand for that. Don't know why I've put that back, because I need that anyway. So let's leave that on one side just to do its thing. So we've got these colours here. So I'll just use this. I can perhaps create another ATC. I can't pick this up now. Another ATC at a later date. Oh, Tracy. So I'm just mopping up some of that colour. Just to, and it's just a plain wash of colour, but I'm still adding it to there because then I can add some more colour. Because what you can do is you can dry that, and then what you can do is once that's dried with your heat tool, or it dries and does its own thing, which we'll see if it dries a little bit, you can then go over the top with some of the same colours and add some more intensity of colour. But what we'll do is we'll let that dry. I'm not going to use that one anyway. I just didn't want to waste the ink. We'll let that dry, and then we can easily add other layers of ink, and then you can create another ATC. Let me just grab a little piece of kitchen roll because it's rather wet on the non-stick craft sheet. There we go. And you can see that's activating rather nicely and doing its own thing. Now, I have got two, which I cannot pick up, that I did before, which I let dry naturally. So I've got those two, and I've now got this one that I can use for another card another time. So I've got my two ATCs that are dry. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wipe over there with an anti-static bag, just both of my ATC size pieces of card. And then I'm going to use a little background stamp. I'm going to use my 30 days stamp set 922. Let's just pull that out. I just love the fact that it's got all different texts and things that I can use as a background. And then I'm going to use my Versamark ink. I'm not stamping a focal image on this, so this is just some background detail that I'm adding to the ATC. And obviously when you've got all these colours, let me just grab a piece of copy of paper. When you've got all these colours on here, you can't actually see where you're going. So what I'm going to do is just take my white embossing powder. I folded this copy of paper up, that's why it's all curling. So you can see you've got that sort of random touch of white. And if I add the embossing powder, I can just see where I'm going. So let's take a little bit more of that Versamark. Add a little bit more of the white. And don't press too hard with your text stamps, because all you end up doing is sort of squishing your background stamp. You can see that I've got some white on there. I don't think I need any more. I didn't pull my heat tool out. I thought I'd pulled everything out, but not my heat tool. Well, there you go. So let's just leave that on one side, and then we'll just add some white detail to this one. Don't think about it too much. Don't be too sort of regimented. It doesn't matter if you've got bits missing. At the end of the day, this is a touch of background. I'll move that out the way, just so that I've got a little bit more space. It's funny because you can't actually see anything on here when you're doing this. And then we've got that white area on there. So it'll just give me a pop of white just against the background, which will look quite nice. So let's move these out of the way. I'm just going to have to grab my heat tool because Tracy didn't pull it out. And we'll just plug that in. Now when I'm embossing, I'm just going to allow the heat tool, just what I need now because I'm already warm, to heat up just before I go to my little ATC pieces. But you could quite easily make little ATC pieces that look rather nice. I know there's been an ATC swap in my group on Facebook. The lovely Ruth arranges it, and there's some lovely artwork on there. So I'm just going to lift this up and just give these a heat. There we go. I was thinking, are you actually going to turn? And I've used that anti-static bag because if you don't use the anti-static bag, you can end up with the embossing powder strayed little bits everywhere. And that's fine if you want that effect, especially if you're doing like a Christmas card. But I don't want that effect on the ATCs. I want a nice, clean, fresh, crisp, white touch of stamping. And there we go. It's difficult sometimes to show the embossing sort of turning. There's a little bit there. No idea why that isn't turning. There we go. Sometimes if you keep missing bits, just turn your card a little bit. Just in case. There we go. I'm just going to unplug my heat tool. I just get into the habit of not having my heat tool plugged in. Right, so then that little sort of pop of white really sort of adds something to the card. I really like that. So we've got our sort of background pieces, and then I'm going to use Stamp Set 930 paper leaves, this Aster. I love this background stamp. So let's I love it because it's not only got a background, it's also got a focal image as well. But this time around, I'm just using the focal image. So I'm using my VersaFine Clair, the Nocturne ink. So just take that Nocturne ink and just give a good layer of ink to the stamp. I don't really need to stamp it all. But I've got this cut out, you'll be pleased to know, for once. But I'll just show you the image stamped because it's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Just allowing that ink just to rest on the card for a few moments. Don't be in too much of a rush to lift that up too quickly because you're not giving it a chance to absorb into the card. I've got the AALLandCreate acrylic blocks which curl nicely, and then you've got a beautiful image. I just love that. I've now got 2 of these cut out, so let me just, that's how it is. Yeah, so I've got my 2 florals just cut out from there. So I just love how you've got the background detail on this as well. I just think that's lovely. So I've got these, and I'd cut 2 out. I don't know whether I'm using 2, but I cut 2 out just to be sort of on the safe side. Now I'm going to take my 5-inch square piece of white card, and then these will go on here just like this. Now what I like to do is, say I get, you know, sometimes if you get something just in the right place and you think, well, I don't want to move it now, you can take a photograph obviously and get it in the right place. But what I like to do, let me just grab my adhesive. So let's say I get it just in the right place, you know, just, and now I'm going to faff for England, I think like that. Then I can see all the text. So you can see that I'm faffing quite a bit until I'm happy with the placement. So when I sort of like where my ATCs are, I'm just going to take my adhesive and not move them and just place a little bit of adhesive underneath. Just so then I don't have to worry what position they were in, because now I can lift it up and they're in the position that I want. I can bend that slightly just so it's not curled. So what I'm going to do then is take the stamp set 922 30 days, and I'm just going to add a bit of background stamping. Not much, just sort of a little touch of the background stamping. So I'm going to use the same part of the stamp just so then I get a lovely cohesive design, and I'm just going to add a little touch of the stamping here and there. I could have made a pencil mark to make it a little bit easier, because I may just end up covering all this up. So let's go a little bit higher. But sometimes if I don't sort of make lines and go too regimented, it's a little bit more random, a bit more free-flowing rather than too regimented. And I'm not pressing too hard. So that is fine. Yeah, I've got sort of the 30 days showing. And we'll just have a little bit down here. Let's just have a little bit down here. And again, I'm just lightly touching. It doesn't matter to me if I sort of miss areas. So I like the fact that it's got this sort of 30 and 30 days. Let me lift this up, just sort of showing like so. So I'm going to grab my pin flare glue, or your ultra thick gel medium, it'll just help me to place that down, give it a little bit of dimension, because I don't mind the dimension, because whoever I give the cards to, I'll wrap in tissue or post in boxes. Oh, Tracy obviously didn't push this up enough. So let's just get rid of a little bit of a clog. This is what happens when Tracy doesn't clean up properly. So I'm just clearing the top of my adhesive. And then what I end up doing is picking up the wipe that I've just cleared all the glue with and wiping it everywhere, because I'm good like that. Still don't think I've cleared it. So yes, you too can watch a video with Tracy clearing out, that's it, her adhesive. But that's what happens when you're all excited and you're creating and you don't tidy up. Right, so I'm just going to add some of that adhesive. Just here. To be fair, I'm coming towards the end, but there's no way I waste any of it anyway. So let's just add a little bit more of that pin flare. So now I can just move this however I wish, just to make sure I can see the little bits of text. There we go, move it along a bit. So nicely, I can just keep moving now. So what I want to do now is I want to decide about my florals. So I'm going to colour one floral, but I want to decide whether I want that white one and then this coloured one on the top. So I'm just going to colour this now. And I'm going to use my Ecoline pens, excuse me. And I'm going to use what I've got out, which is Deep Orange 237, Fuchsia 350, and maybe a touch of Scarlet 334. We shall see. So we'll take our water brush, which I can guarantee you won't be clean, because that's Tracy all over. Now you can have a couple of brushes to hand if you wish, and you can have your water pot. I rarely have sort of a water pot when I'm demonstrating for my YouTube channel, mainly because I know what I'm like. I get so engrossed and then I just knock it over, because that's the way I roll. So I'm going to use the Deep Orange, and I'm just going to add some of that Deep Orange just here, sort of at the centre area here and at the edges of the floral. Now those professional colourists out there, they will spend absolute hours colouring beautifully, and I'm aware, you know, I'm not a colourist. I just colour to the standard that makes me happy, and I don't put any pressure on myself. I'm just going to add, and being creative is not about adding pressure to yourself. You know, if something isn't perfect, it doesn't matter. As long as you've enjoyed the process, that's the main thing. So I'm just adding this Deep Orange. You know, if you don't, you know, I don't use alcohol markers. I like these Ecolines. I like my pencils. I've just bought some Stapler pigment brush pens. I mean, I do love pens and pencils. So just use what makes you happy. So I've got my Ecoline brush pen, the deep orange. I'll just leave that lid off. And then I'm going to use the pink. And when you first apply the colours, you know, you can't, the one thing you can't expect is fantastic results with one swipe of the pen. You know, it needs a little bit more work than that, but I always think it's worth it. So I'm just going to layer the fuchsia just sort of the top of the orange, next to the orange, so it's going next to the orange. And just take your time when you're colouring. You know, you still get quick, you can get quick results, but you still need to layer some colour. So what I've done now is I've laid down the fuchsia, and then I'm going to pick up, so now that's like a sort of a watered down version of the fuchsia, and I'm just going to sort of blend the two colours together. And you're still not going to end up with enough vibrancy just that quickly. Just needs a little bit more work. So I'm just sort of blending out a little bit of the colour. And you can see I've left this white because that will just make it pop a little bit more. So, oops, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take scarlet and I'm going to add a little touch of the scarlet just to give me a little bit more depth of that colour. And there'll always be one that I miss because that's me all over. So I'm just adding a little bit of that scarlet just to give it another sort of touch of depth. And you often see all the details a lot better in the flesh. So I'm just adding a little bit of that scarlet just to give it a little bit more depth. So what I'm going to do then is use the deep orange. Let's grab our water and then just give the brush a little bit of a clean. And then I'm going to pick up the orange and just bring it up a little bit more into that pink. And as you sort of layer the colour, it starts to get a little bit more vibrant as you layer down more of the colour. And what I'd always recommend is if you can actually give the card time to rest and then add more colour on the top, that works really well. You can layer colours beautifully if you just give things time just to rest a little bit. So I'm going to give that a really good clean because we'll go back with the pink. But yes, if you've got the patience just to let things which I often do, if you just let them rest or you go and have a brew and then you come back and you layer colour again on the top, you'll find that it works beautifully. I can already see when I add this pink, it's definitely, the colour is definitely building up now. It's just building up nicely, just to give me a little pop of more colour. And I will add pops of white, but obviously if I try and do that now, nothing's going to happen. because the card is soaking wet because I've used all that water on there. You can also go in and just add a little touch, because it will, now that the card is wet, the colour will wick out. So I'm just adding a little bit more vibrancy. So what I'm going to do then is go back to the scarlet and just add a little bit more depth, little touch of that scarlet, just to, and once this is dry, you then add your touches of white. I can also pinch the florals a little bit, just to give it a little bit more life. So what I'm going to do now is faff like crazy. So I've got the white one, and I've got the added benefit of looking in the camera. Yes, we want that white one. So we'll grab some white cotton, just to add a little touch to the background and diffuse some of that colour with the white cotton. And I'm unravelling that very loosely, just sort of faff. Well, you know I faff for England anyway. So let's just push this up because I'm coming to the end. And add a good dollop of that pin flare. Now I've used that pin flare. You need to make sure it makes contact with the card. And the good thing is, because I've used that pin flare, I can move that around. There we go. So I can look in the camera, just add that there, just so that you can see what I've got. And then we'll grab our Posca pen. Now I'm using a Posca pen, and I've had a few questions about the Posca pen, and I should every now and then just repeat a few things, and this is why I do repeat things, just so that if we have new ladies or gentlemen joining the YouTube, then they understand why I'm doing things. The Posca pen is a paint pen, and the paint is in there, but nothing will happen unless you sort of, when they come, obviously it's not showing the white paint, and when your Posca pen arrives, you need to sort of prime it. So you need to get that paint flowing. So you get the paint flowing. You also give the pen a really good shake. So mix that paint up so you give it a really good shake, and then you pump the pen again. And it's only at that stage, when you've got the paint flowing, that you can then splatter your card. Now you can splatter your card like I'm doing, just by using sort of a flicking motion with your wrist, or you can tap another pen on the end like this and tap it that way. So it's entirely up to you, whatever you want to do. And I use a white Posca pen because for me, I love little touches of white, pops of white, whatever. It makes me happy. So just so that you can see, I've made sure the Posca pen hits those flowers as well. Just beautiful. And the white embossing and the Posca white echoes the white in the background of the card. So I want a little bit of text. Now, of course, I haven't got the stamp out that I wanted out. So goodness knows where that is. Which one? You know when you have so many stamps and you're like, I can't remember where that one is. Just bear with me. Don't think I've got it out already, have I? Let's have a look. Oh yes, of course I've got it out already. Oh, right, so stamp set 925, which is Bright Dawn, has also got the Aster on there as a full flower, and it's got the Aster on here, and that's why I designed the A7, so that it would go together with this stamp set as well. So let's grab that Aster text. And just grab my A7 acrylic block. That Aster text and a little bit of white card, and if I stamp it against that straight edge, that will help me to get it a little bit straighter. It doesn't mean I'll get it straight, it just helps, trust me. So let's just place that back onto the packaging. And if you're messing with stamps, just make sure that you give your hands a clean. Your hands are clean. Have you seen the state of that? Give your hands a clean. Who am I kidding? Right, so cut that out. And that pop of white, which will can't speak, that Aster on the white text will echo the white text, that's the white background of the card. Don't ask me to speak, you don't expect me to communicate as well, do you, when I'm demoing? I mean, what am I like? So I'm going to use my Posca pen just to add a faux matte. And I'm just doing it on the white card, mainly because it means I don't have any cleanup. And that one, my black pen also needs just pumping as well, just to get that paint going. So then I've got a nice faux black matte just on there, just to echo the black matte that I'm going to put on here. And I'm going to add a little bit of the Pin Flare glue just on either side. Just to add that to there. Let me just bring that down. And yes, Tracy will faff for England. And I often look in the camera many times. So what I'm going to do then is add this to my black matte, which will make everything pop. And this is why I like black mattes. It's a good idea if you let everything dry before you try to place everything down. There's just something about a 5-inch piece of card. It's just such a lovely little size, not too overpowering. And I'm then going to add that to a 6-inch square card. So let's add that to a 6-inch square card. Let's place that down. Just lovely. That colour, those colours now really pop. But we still got a couple of, well, not a couple, just one thing to do. Just want to wipe my hands because I've got bits of glue everywhere. Let's put the lid on the adhesive because you know what will happen. So what I'm going to do then is grab my little Inktense pencil. Now let's make sure that that brush is really clean. So we're just, oh, typical. Let's have the phone to ring as well now, just as you're recording. And my husband won't pick it up because he's working. Welcome to the Tracy household. That phone rarely rings because you're probably like me, you don't use your landline. But of course it rings when I'm recording. And I don't edit that out. That's Tracy, real life. That's what happens when you're recording videos. Welcome to my world. So I'm just going to then just blend that out. Just to give a little bit of shadow. There you go. Just to give a little bit of shadow underneath, which works rather nicely. And then if I lift this up, you can just see a little bit of the shadow, which works rather nicely, especially in real life. And then what I want you to do is, if you're handing this to someone special, and we're always handing our cards to somebody special, whoever we hand it to, they're special. So let's just add my gel pen. So when this is dry, which it is not dry, I will then, oh, it's not too bad, just add a little dash of white, just to give it sort of like a faux shine. So just take your time and add a little bit of that white. There we go, that looks rather nicely. And then if I lift that up, you can see it sort of gives it like a shine. Just show you that dimension. And I think that works rather nicely from two ATC little pieces of card. Just works rather nicely. So I hope you've enjoyed that video as much as I have creating it. I can't wait to see your interpretations. I'd like to thank you all for your support of my YouTube channel, and thank you for joining me. Welcome to my new subscribers and my old too. So, well, not old, my long-standing subscribers. So thank you all very much. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.